Hey everybody, we are doing something different today. We are changing it up, right, Clay? Because we're a little tired of all the news and stuff. So we thought we'd have some fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can only do heavy for so long, right? Everybody needs a little bit of levity and a little bit of off topic, and I think this one's going to be a blast. I think we're going to have a good time with it.
I love it. All right after this, we're gonna do something fun. Okay, so what Clay and I have decided we're doing today is we are going to go back and forth with 21 questions. So, I mean, is it going to be exactly 21? I don't know. We'll see what we get through, see what happens. But that is our plan. I'm so excited. And I'm not going to lie, I have some stupid ones on here because I kind of like stupid questions. We should have flipped a coin. We should have flipped a coin to see who was going to go first. Let's flip the
Well,
pretend
so
coin.
just so everybody knows, normally Elsa and I have a process when we decide what we're going to talk about for the week, and usually it starts, somewhere 2 or 3 days before recording, and somebody will send somebody an email that says, "Hey, let's talk about this," or "Let's talk about this," and we'll pull some ideas together and then we'll settle, and it usually happens pretty quickly. Elsa shot me this one yesterday. So, and I love it. I think it's a great concept. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. But all she said was, let's ask each other questions. So I have no idea what she's going to ask me. She has no idea what I'm going to ask her. And who knows who interpreted what out of just that simple task of let's ask each other questions. So let's see. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I feel like you're gonna have if I have to put a guess to it, I feel like you're gonna have the more intellectual questions, and I'm gonna have I promised one of the questions on there. I'll take it right off of there of dumb questions to ask people. I'm not gonna ask you your favorite color. If you want to share it, that's fine, but I'm not gonna ask it. I did better than that, but not much better.
Did you do I'm not going to ask you the Barbara Walters, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? That is not on my list of questions.
Okay, fair enough. All right, who's starting?
Oh, ladies first.
I love what a gentleman. All right, so here we go. I was going to mix it up, but I'll lose my place, so I won't mix it up.
Okay.
I'm going right down my list here. We'll go back and forth, right? One for you, one for me.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, so here we go. This isn't a silly one. This is like a start off good one. What would you have done or become had you not gone into the service?
So we've said this before. I've said this before a number of times. That was kind of always my trajectory from the time I was a teenager. But, and I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Could have gone into law enforcement. I have a master's degree in management, which obviously I put into account. I've dabbled since retirement in business, which I hated. But truthfully, if not gone into the military, I probably would have been a teacher. Probably my older sister, I don't know what it is, but my older sister's she works in education. She's a principal. My younger sister works in education. She's a reading specialist. I probably would have been a high school social studies history teacher and soccer coach. That's probably where I would have ended up.
I could see that. I could see you doing that easily. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely where I would have been. All right. Elsa's turn. All right. If you could go back and give your 17-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, I think it would be, and I'll explain it after I say it. I think it would be do it anyway. I would say, and I've talked about this many times. I am, and nobody believes me, but I swear to you, it's true. I am a severe introvert. And people get confused too. Right. Introvertism isn't that you're shy. I'm not shy, but I definitely like to stay to myself and do my own thing and, and control my environment and all that kind of stuff. And that is something that definitely held me back from doing some of the things that I shouldn't say would have, that I wanted to do. And the one thing that I wanted to do really badly that I never told anyone growing up in high school in particular was I wanted to join the drama club. Like I love, now it's not a surprise. Like everybody knowing the things that I
Sure.
do now, it's like totally not a surprise. But if I had said this to anybody, even just 5 years ago, they would have been like, really? No, sir. But yes, so I would say do it anyway, meaning do it in spite of the fear of like ridicule or failure, really. So that would be my advice to my 17-year-old self. Do it anyway.
I like it. I like it.
All right, let's see. I got one for you. Here we go. Another simple one, maybe. What is the best book? Because we're authors, we got to talk a little bit of book stuff. What's the best book you ever read and why?
Best book I've ever read and why. I would say, and I don't even know if they still read this in high school, but before I got to high school, I have an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. And my family's full of readers. My dad eats books. Obviously, but my older sister read Catcher in the Rye in high
Oh,
school.
yeah.
And before I got to high school, she said, read this. And obviously, everybody that's read, Catcher in the Rye, it's a classic. I think it's probably is to me as close to the great American novel as there has ever been one. But really what it did for me was it transitioned me from kind of youthful teenage kind of reading to really kind of adult, no kidding kind of reading. And so there was a huge maturity step that came with that in just what I took into my life. So it's not just the content, because it's a phenomenal novel for everybody that's
Right.
read it, but really what it did for me, in development as a human being, as an adult growing up, there was a big leap there. So, Catcher in the Rye, I think, has a huge place in my heart, as far as a really one of the best books I've ever read.
I love that. Great choice, too. Great choice.
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. So this is a little bit of a two-parter, a little bit. What was your best job ever and your worst job ever?
Oh, okay. Those are so I'll do the excluding podcasting, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
We'll exclude that. Um, best job. I probably have to say I was a floral designer for 15 years, and
Wow.
yeah, and it was a little mom and pop shop, and she taught me. She saw, so I had painted a mural on my now grown daughter's bedroom when she was a baby, and she came and delivered flowers for me because I just had a baby, and she saw the mural and she said, "Did you paint that, freehand or whatever?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And she said, "Well, you've actually got some artistic talent. If you ever want to come into the flower shop and learn how to do floral design, I'll teach you." And I was like, okay, that sounds great. I was able to bring the baby and everything. So I would go into this little mom and pop flower shop, and she would teach me how to make floral designs. And I'm a little morbid. My favorite thing to make was always funeral sprays, because they were just so big, and
Yeah.
you could just like get
Yeah.
really like, creative with it. And yeah, so that would probably be like the greatest job for the time. I did that for like 15 years, loved it. Worst job, probably the worst job was probably my first job. It sounds great, and it's such a typical small town girl job to have too. So I totally realize that. But I worked in a gourmet food shop, and it was great for the food. But I hated every minute of it. I hated being on the cash register. I was so embarrassing. I'm so bad with numbers that I would go into automatic panic mode. And even things that I knew, like you could say to me, you could like catch me off guard and go 2 plus 2. And I go, I don't know. Of course I know what it is. It's 7. Kidding, kidding. But yeah, so it was very stressful for me. They'd be like, I didn't even know, this is how dumb I was. I was like 16. So cut me a little slack, people, when I say this to you. I didn't know what a quarter pound was, like, right off the, like, dumb things I didn't know. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I since learned. Don't worry. I have learned. But yeah, that was the worst one.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta ask
All
you.
right.
I'm like waiting
No,
for the
that's
next one.
good. That's interesting.
Clay's like, dude. All right, let's see. Okay, so here's the dumb one for you. I've got a dumb one. It's not really dumb. Do you think aliens actually exist?
So I am, yes, I do. I think it is extremely shallow minded. I think it's crazy for us in this massive universe, which we still, haven't touched, but we've, explored visually, and we know, kind of what's out there in the expanse, and, at least conceptually, we know. To think that there is not another living thing outside of this one little planet, I I think is absurd. To
Yeah,
believe that there is no other potential for life anywhere else in the universe besides this one little planet that we sit on, I think is I don't know if it's narcissistic. I don't know what it is, but anybody who says, it's impossible, there's no way there's aliens, I think you're crazy. I
right.
really think that you are off your rocker if you don't believe that there's potential for life in other places besides this planet. It's just, it's crazy to me.
Yep, I
Yeah.
agree. It was a perfect word for it too. It's such a narcissistic notion to think that. I mean, the universe is so huge. They're still discovering,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and that'll never stop. I mean, it's just going to go beyond our comprehend. It is beyond our comprehension. So yes, I agree with you 100%.
Yep.
They're definitely
Okay.
aliens. I don't know if they're green, but they're aliens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, like I'm not going beyond there's aliens. But there are aliens. Okay. So I know that you are, now a very, conservative Christian. I don't know if you've always been that. So I'm going to
Mhm.
ask you, what was the worst punishment you received as a child or teenager, and what did you get it for?
Oh, so I have an older brother. He's 4 years older, and he was the golden child. Like, he never did anything wrong, or if he did do something wrong, he was smart enough to, like, own it and apologize and do all the right things. I did everything against what I was told to do. If you told me to sit, I was so obnoxious. If you told me to sit, I'd stand. If you told me to, whatever, I had to do the opposite of everything. And I was extremely willful. I did whatever I wanted and was very like, damn the consequences. Now, having said that, I will also tell you, hand to God, that I wasn't a terrible kid. I was just rebellious, but not excessively so. So worst thing I ever did. Well, it's actually our funny story that my mother and I tell together and we laugh about. Um, I snuck out of the house, which is not an uncommon thing, and
No.
met up with my girlfriends, and we met down at like the gazebo. I lived in a condo complex at that time, and we met down in this spot. We were all hanging out. One of the girls' father must have checked on her in her room, and of course found she wasn't there. So we hear him yelling her name out. She goes in. Well, unbeknownst to me and the other one, we didn't know that she ratted us out, the jerk. So I had this whole system of when I would get back to the house, I knew like which floorboards creaked
Yeah.
and which stair, like
Yeah,
you get the
for sure.
blueprint pretty quick. And I walked through our slider door, and I'm tiptoeing. I have my shoes in my hand, and I'm tiptoeing, and all of a sudden I hear,
Where have you been?
and my blood turned to ice. And it was my mother. And yeah, and it was bad enough that I snuck out, but it was like at, I don't know, I think I came in probably at like 3 o'clock in the morning at the point. I think it was like maybe, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. And And that's the only one I'm really copping to, because the other ones I don't think my mother knows yet, and I don't care that I'm 52. No, she don't need to know. Listen, she still can count to 3, and when she gets to 2, I stop whatever I'm doing. She's like, 1, 2, okay, mom, I'll stop. So yeah, never ends. Yeah, we'll call that the worst.
That you were so I am the boy, literally known in my house as the boy. So I have kind of that. I have the older sister and the younger sister, and I am the boy. And my older sister and I were we weren't bad kids, but we were a little risk takers. We did go out and have a good time. We snuck out of the house. We did those kinds of things. And then
Sure.
my younger sister, who clearly was the smartest of the 3 of us, learned from all this things that my older sister and I did. And she had a great teenage experience. She was just smart enough not to do the things that were going to get her in trouble, or at least not get caught doing them. So
Right.
we all were a little adventurous, I guess is a good word, but I got in my fair share of trouble, and I did my fair share of things wrong. So yeah, I don't know how much we would have hung out, but I definitely would have been the bad influence had we hung out.
I love it. Yeah, I always hung out with the bad influences. Like, I wasn't the bad influence, and I know that sounds very, whatever. But I had the strictest parents. Like, my mom always looked like she was the coolest. Like, she was a hairstylist, so she'd always have like funky hairstyles and everything. She looked like she was so cool. And all my friends would be like, "Oh, your mom's so cool." I'm like, "No, she's not. She's so strict." I had the earliest curfew out of everyone always. She was always like, she was that mom that called if I said I'm going over to Jackie's house. She'd be like, "Hi, it's Elsa's mom. I'm just making sure that somebody's going to be." I'm like, "Come on, mom, so embarrassing." God. But yeah, I was a troublemaker. And my brother used to like just shake his head, and I remember he would literally say to me like, "Don't you understand how easy it is to not get in trouble? Just own up to it. Just say, 'I'm sorry, I was wrong. It won't happen again.'" Because that's what he would do. And they'd be like, "You're so mature. We're so proud of you." And, and I'd be like, and I'd be that little jerk, and I'd be getting in trouble. I'd be sitting like this, I don't care, being just, obnoxious. My kids are good. They didn't do that to me. I don't know how I got lucky, but they were not like that. Their stories crack me up of like, now of course they're adults, and they're like, "Mom, you never knew it, but one time, we went outside and we were in the driveway hanging out with our friends." I'm like, "Really? Is that it? Cool."
Yeah. Nerd,
losers. Yeah. Oh yeah, they're a little. I tell them some mild stories now, and they're like, "Mom." It's cute. I love it. All right, let's see. What do I have for you here? Oh, okay. If you could snap your fingers right now and appear somewhere else, where would you be? Anywhere in the world.
So I think everybody's got a bit of a bucket list, places you want to go and those kinds of things. I'm not a beach person. I'm not a, no secret in the world. I'm a massive soccer fan and a player. I've played my entire life, and as a soccer fan, that the teams that you generally cheer for, root for, are not here in the United States.
Right.
And I follow an English club, Liverpool, which I'm a massive, like, life stops in my house for me when the game's on, and that's my thing. So if I could snap my fingers and be standing in the home end, known as the Cop in Anfield, their home stadium, and watch a Liverpool game, like right now, I would go. Yep.
I
Absolutely.
love that. That's cool. Do you watch that show? You ever watch that show, Ted Lasso?
It's amazing because everybody asks me that, because I'm such a soccer guy, and the only streaming service I don't have is Apple. So I have
Isn't that
never
funny?
seen Ted Lasso.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
but
I'll tell you what, just to forewarn you, if you do decide to get it to watch that, stop at like season 2 or is it season 3? They all of a sudden went super woke, like hardcore. They were great up until this point, and then they just it must got new writers or something, and they just started laying it on so thick, and I stopped watching it. But just to
gotcha.
forewarn you, before up to that point, it is so good, and yeah, it'd be a fun one to watch to that point.
Okay. All right, here we go. So 3 people, dead or alive, that you would invite to a dinner party.
Oh my gosh, that's such a hard one. Okay, let's see. Oh, I know after we're done here, I'm gonna at like midnight, I'm gonna go, oh, why didn't I say so and so? Um, all right, off the top of my head, let's see. So you can go ahead and laugh at me because I'm laughing at myself when no, I'm taking it back before I changed my mind. Hang on. Elvis Presley is number 1 because
Good. I
I
like
love
it.
Elvis. I just like flat out we're huge Elvis fans. I have been since I was a kid. So Elvis would probably be number 1 for me. I suppose I should pick somebody like really smart and historically influential. Well, he was, but you know what I mean. Who I'd like to sit down with? Maya Angelou. That woman, she was pretty amazing. I would have loved to sit with her. Now let me think of somebody alive that I would love to sit and talk with. I can tell you right now, it's not Kamala Harris. It's not her. It's not her. I know y'all were thinking that. I know you were like, oh, I bet she wants to sit down and talk to her. No, I'd be a little uncomfortable. Who right now? You know what? Honestly, we talk about Donald Trump in many ways, in good, bad, indifferent, all of the above. But I think I would like to sit down and just have a genuine conversation with him to see who he really is without the cameras, without all of the stuff and things. Just sheer curiosity of does he bring that whole extra dynamic to quiet, normal conversations or not? So that would be my third pick. And like I said, tonight at midnight, I'm gonna shoot you an email and say, "Oh, this is who I should have said." But we're
So
sticking with those.
sitting at a table for dinner, we have Elvis, Maya Angelou, Donald Trump, and Elsa.
That's a
That's the
crazy
table.
table. That's a
That's
crazy
a
table,
yeah.
right?
That conversation would be, you'd need somebody to transcribe that. There'd have to be a court
Yes,
reporter there doing the whole thing, because that would be
yes.
something I definitely people would be interested in how that turned out.
I think so. I think so because you couldn't get further apart people, right? In
Yeah.
their lanes and in life and mindsets and everything. So I feel like I picked a good table.
No, I like it. I like it. It's
All
very
right.
diverse. Good. Yeah.
All right. Now, part of me is wondering, like I'm curious about your answer to that question too. Can we cheat a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Um,
I want to know, I really want to know yours.
so Teddy Roosevelt,
Mm,
number 1. A lot of, conservationist, obviously president, soldier, all those things. Amazing life. One of the last, I think, great American adventurers.
mm.
So he's one of them. Who else?
It's tough, right?
It is tough. It's tough to narrow it down. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
ton of people that I would love to sit and talk to.
Mm-hmm.
But Teddy Roosevelt's one for sure. Let's see. I would be very interested in bringing in really any one of the framers of the Constitution,
Mm.
and get a real sense of what they truly were thinking as they wrote that. That would be, it would, I hate to say, it would take a lot of debate off the table in today's
Yes,
day and age, which would be a
you aren't
huge
kidding.
bonus. But that would be, and it doesn't, any one of them that was there for the Congress, in Philadelphia as they were writing all of that would be, you know, a huge thing. And then let me see, somebody alive. Somebody alive. I actually would like to sit down with that crew and bring Secretary Clinton and sit her down at the table.
Ooh.
I think
Yes.
that's not to gang up on her, but just for a
Sure.
challenge of ideas and
Yep.
ideology to go back and forth between, you know, the original, you know, one of the framers of the Constitution, a former president, myself with my life experience, and then her with a very different ideology and mindset, and just see where that conversation kind of runs itself. I think that would be very, very interesting to
Yeah,
sit
it
through.
would.
Yeah.
Yes. Very much so. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
Yeah.
does that mean do I ask
No,
my
no, go
my
ahead.
next?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Because I've got one that we're both going to weigh in on coming up
Okay.
here in a second. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Let's see. Do you have a bad habit that you need to give up? You don't strike
I
me as a
do.
bad habit guy. You do?
I do. I have I'm cutting down on soda, which is not really a bad habit, but it's
Right.
something that I need to improve on. I do have a nicotine thing. It's a long time thing. Yeah. You know, anybody who's been in the military, and especially if you've been a combat arms, you know, kind of guy, like the life that I lived, chewing tobacco is almost a cultural norm.
Sure.
I've quit a number of times. I
Mhm.
quit for the last stint I quit for 3 or 4 years, and then I was retired and COVID hit, and I was working in the business world, and I was overloaded. COVID was nuts. I was running, you know, 3 branches by myself when I was only supposed to be running 1, and there was a whole bunch of things going on in that, and I was just stressed out. And one day I broke. I broke,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, I'm going back to this, and I broke, and I need to stop again, but that is my bad habit. I do chew tobacco.
Wow.
Yeah, it is what it is. Everybody's got a
Stop.
vice, and that one's mine.
Yeah, listen, I can't even I genuinely cannot judge. I was a cigarette smoker for like 20 years. And it's been I think I'm getting close to 20 years that I quit. But yeah, I mean, I came from a long line of smokers. Everybody smoked. I smoked my first cigarette when I was like 11 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know, so and I mean, because everybody smoked, so it was curiosity, and yeah, smoked for a long time, and all the way up until the year or so that I remember distinctly saying, I'm never going to quit smoking. I love smoking. It was like my identity. It's part of who I am. Like I've even got,
yeah,
muscle memory, right?
yeah.
And I said I was never going to quit. And then I went through like a major significant life change. And I just had this epiphany that I was done having external things control me, and I felt that my addiction was in control of me, because I would park 5 rows down in the parking lot to have enough time it's so embarrassing to even say it, to have enough time to smoke
Yeah,
that cigarette to the door. And it's like, gosh, that is so bad, so much control over your every action, and I knew I would only get worse as I got older. And the final straw was seeing my, at that time, 4-year-old daughter basically pretending to be me. I was watching them. They were playing, kids all playing in the front yard. And I watched my little 4-year-old, this tiny little thing, go like this and go, and then apparently I was a very flamboyant smoker, according to her. And she threw this, invisible pretend cigarette on the ground and ground it out really, dramatically with her foot. And I went, oh my God, she's being me. She's imitating me. And this is horrifying. And that was probably like the absolute final straw. So point being, I totally get it.
I'll take some guilt off of you. She was imitating Sandy from the end of Grease. It wasn't you. She had just seen Grease.
You better shape up.
It was not. So it wasn't you. You weren't a bad example. You're a great mother. So you're
Darn that Sandy. It was very
There you
Sandy-like.
go. Yeah.
We're going with that for sure.
Okay, so here's the one, and this is awesome. We always ask for feedback from people. I had a listener, a fan who listens every week, give me a question for the two of us, right?
Okay.
So this is from Stephanie, and her question is, do you give any credence to any conspiracy theories? And if so, what are they? And then the flip side to that is, are there any out there that you look at and they go, that's total bull? I don't believe any of that. So first one is conspiracy theories that you think there's possibility or probability of fact. And then ones that you go, nope, I don't buy that at all.
Wow. Okay. So Stephanie, that's such an awesome question. And thank you. And thank you for watching the show. We love you. Oh gosh. So one I buy into and one that I don't. One that I buy into. So here's an interesting one. And I wish I was better prepared in that I had more explanation and details to give you, but you guys are gonna have to look it up on your own. And maybe I'll find something and put it in the show notes. But one I was just told / asked about, somebody was telling me, her exact words were, so have you gone down the rabbit hole about fluoride? And I went, about fluoride? No, what? I'm afraid, but tell me. And, basically like the gist of it is that it's actually a byproduct of something else, and it was just something that was just going to be waste, and they got rid of it, and somebody was like, oh, I know, why don't we use it and tell everybody that it's, you need it for your teeth and blah blah blah. And apparently the truth of it is that it's like whatever it's got in it, whatever it does, actually is affecting our children, ours, I guess, everybody's intellect, your brain functioning. And so that is one that I'm starting to go down now. And because of everything going on in the world, all of the chemicals, if you go and look at everything, this is always a big conversation of, all of the chemicals that we allow in our foods and products now, where all these other countries have long banned because of the detrimental effects. So that is one I think I will definitely buy into once I do a little more research. So that one definitely, I think. And one that I don't, gosh, there's a lot. I think, for some reason, the one that comes to my mind right away is the whole John Kennedy. No, is it John Kennedy Jr.? Yeah, remember that was going around for a long time that he's still alive, that he didn't die in the plane crash. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to say I never bought into that one. All these sightings of him and the theories of that, and I'm probably gonna anger some QAnon people by saying that, but yeah, that one I have a hard time with. How about you? What are yours?
So the one that I absolutely buy into is, Lee Harvey Oswald did not act alone. Like there's no way, there's no two ways about it. And in high school, I took a contemporary American civilization course, and the teacher was infatuated with the Kennedy assassination. We talked about it all the time. And then when I was in college, I took my 100 level English class that everybody takes, and that professor was infatuated with the Kennedy assassination, right?
Oh, wow.
So we talked about it all the time. And then as a sophomore, I took a history class that was solely presidential assassinations. It was one night a week. It was a night class. It was 3 hours long. It was one night a week. And the first half of class, we would talk about Reagan or Lincoln or whatever. And then the second half of class was all the conspiracy theory stuff about Kennedy. So I've been inundated multiple times with all of the flaws and the holes and the potential possibilities and everything else around the Kennedy assassination. And if there is one thing that I believe for a fact, was it was not Lee Harvey Oswald. by himself. There's no way
Mm.
in the world. So that's one that I lend tons of credence to. Who did it? I've got my theory, and my theory is it was, a compilation of a number of organizations up to and including agencies and organizations within the United States government played a role in that somehow. So that's one that I definitely buy into. One
Okay.
that I don't buy into are the we never landed on the moon.
Oh, that is a really good
I
one.
don't
They've
buy that.
gotten me
I
on
think
that.
we did. I truthfully believe that we did. And I know that, that there are, everybody says, well, why haven't we been back? And why can't we get back? And why,
Right.
and listen, I'm not that smart. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a chemist, but I do. And there's probably a number of reasons we can't get back or haven't gotten back. But I do believe that we have been there. I do believe that. I don't believe for a second that was fabricated in a sound studio somewhere. I do honestly believe that we have set foot on the moon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tell you what, when you like I said, when you start going down those rabbit holes, they give some really convincing
Sure. Yeah.
arguments, man. But it also reminds me a little bit. I don't know if you ever seen it. There's like a meme that's been going around forever. It's like a picture of Albert Einstein, and the quote is, "You shouldn't trust everything you hear on the internet." Albert Einstein, and
Einstein.
it's like,
Yeah.
right, so it's like one of those things. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just obviously given that, like, stop. Everything you read on the internet isn't true.
No.
And so those rabbit holes, man, they could be a lot of trouble. But what a
Sure.
great question that was. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks to Stephanie for that one. That was
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
to get listener participation.
Yes, yeah, and we always tell you guys, and we'll tell you again, anytime you want to send us in a question, a comment, any of those things, we love to discuss it, whatever the case is, or just a topic that you want us to talk about, and
Yeah.
we can put our thinking caps on and handle it. We can handle it.
Nice. Okay,
Oh.
here's one. Here's one with some meaning behind it. Do you have a personal hero or mentor?
Gosh, since I've been on my faith journey that I talk about all the time, my hero, my mentor is Jesus. That is 100%, 100%, hands down. If it has taught me nothing else, it has definitely taught me to not have false idols, and that is the one. Yeah, that was a shockingly easy one for me. I panic at the start of every question. I'm like, oh my God, am I going to have an answer? Ah, ah. But that was an easy one for me. Yeah, that
Fair
would be the
enough.
one. Yep,
Fair enough.
yep. All right, let's see. What have I got for you? Ooh, let's see. Okay, I don't know if this is easy or hard, but we'll find out. So when you meeting somebody new, what would be a red flag about them, a vibe, or whatever it is that they give off? What would be a red flag to you that would just put you off of them? Is there something they would do, say, appear, anything?
Yeah. The one upper. It is my
Mm,
absolute pet peeve with people, especially people you just met. There's a difference between holding and carrying conversation, like relating to someone, right?
right.
Shared experience or something like that. But if they're an immediate one upper like that, I will walk away from that conversation without hesitation. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do people like that. It's I hate to say it seems to be becoming more common.
Yeah.
It's almost like people need some sort of validation, kind of a thing. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can't meet someone, if you can't find a way to relate to them, without propping yourself up as being better than them, that is a person I have no time for, and truthfully, I don't need my life. So if you're a
Mm-hmm.
one upper, if that's your jam, then I am not hanging with you. like not even a little bit.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. And that totally, that answer doesn't surprise me at all, because you're humble, like you're confident but humble, and people who are like that don't need to one up anybody. So I totally get that. I love that. My husband's like that too, very like no one would even have any clue of, and he's got this, like you, this massive body of accomplishment, and you would never know it unless you point blank ask him, and then he'll tell you, and even then it's kind of like pulling teeth, and it makes me crazy. I'm like, well, you know what he did? He's been, where he's been, what he can do, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it's all good. It's all good. But it's that humble confidence that I think is a really very cool character trait for sure.
Okay. So I got one for you. All right.
Okay.
So here we go. Do you know how your parents picked your first name?
Oh, yeah, actually I do. So, um, so a lot of you know, some of you don't know. So I'll tell whoever doesn't know, I am half Cuban on my father's side and half German on my mother's side. So they were each born in their respective countries. My mother, I don't know where I think it was like an actress or something. When she was pregnant with me, she heard the name somewhere, Mala, Mala, and she loved it. And that's what she wanted to name me. And my father's side of the family, the Cubans, were
No.
all in an uproar because you already
Yeah.
know Mala means bad. And they're like, you can't name her that. That's not going to happen. It's a terrible name, blah, blah, blah. So she gave in, and she gave me my name. But to this day, she still calls me by Mala, and some family members do too. And she always gets mad at me that I don't introduce myself as Mala to people, because she's like, that's the name you've been called your entire life and you don't use it. And I always say, because that name requires such an explanation, because nobody had heard that name before. Like, I don't know anybody who's ever heard that name before. And anytime that I did use it, people are like, Mala, what's that? Where did that come from? So it was embarrassing when you're a kid and you have to like explain yourself. So yeah, that is where my kind of where my name came from and where it didn't come from.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm a Clay, not a Clayton.
Oh, that, you know what? I think
Clay.
I think I would have assumed that it was a shortening of
no,
that.
it's just Clay.
Clay.
And it was a guy that my dad served with in the Air Force that he just liked his name. That's literally all it was. But it's funny because, like you said, as a kid, it was a little rough. I got called mud and dirt and all those kinds of things. But also as in a family that I grew up shooting clay targets, trap skeet, that kind of thing, for years and years and years, and even occasionally now, in that environment, if I am out shooting, or I'm with my dad, or when I was a kid and we were in that at the gun club or whatever, and they'd be like, oh, is that where your dad is, you get named after the clay? No, that wasn't it, but thanks. So,
yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, but yeah, Clay, not Clayton. That's
Clay, not Clayton.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no other, like, that's the only shortening that it would be. Like, there's no other Clay something.
So
I like it.
When I was great practical joke, not at my expense, and truthfully, I wasn't even involved in. I was a lieutenant. I was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas, and I was the second in command of the unit that I was in. Right. So the other lieutenants all had a responsibility administratively. They had to submit documents for me to sign and review and all these other things. So this brand new lieutenant shows up, and one of the older lieutenants says, he asked him, and he goes, hey, what's the XO's signature block? He's going to have to sign this memo. What's his signature block? And he goes, oh, it's Clayford P. Novak. And he goes, oh, okay. And he just puts it in there. So this guy, he's like 2-3 years younger than me, and a lieutenant's a lieutenant, truthfully. But he brings this thing into me, and he goes, hey, hey, XO, can you review this for me? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, no problem. And I look at it, and I scroll down, and I read the whole thing, and I get to the bottom, and I look at him like, what the, and he's like, what? And I'm like, who the hell told you this was my signature or this was my name? And he's like, oh, it's so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, you've been had, man. And this is back in the old days where like he did this on a word processor. Like this was like, he had to go back and like redo the whole thing over again. But yeah, so the only variation of that has ever crossed is Clayford, which is a total makeup, but entertaining,
that's
entertaining
awesome.
nonetheless.
Yeah, that's good. I love that.
Yeah.
Too funny. All right, so I've got one last one for you. And
Okay.
so that is, staying with the theme of our program overall, who do you think would make a great president? But the catch is it can't be, not that we think anybody that's running right now is a great candidate, but it can't be someone from whoever's already running. It's somebody
From the
maybe out of
pool.
the box. Yeah.
From the pool that's already out there. So nobody from the current pool.
Yep.
I mean, I've met a number of these folks in person. And there are a number of folks that people are, enamored with that I've met in person. And I have told them, if you only met them in person, you would probably think otherwise.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think, what about somebody isn't even qualified to be president?
Sure.
So I honestly think if he was eligible to run, and people are going to think I'm crazy, I would be very interested to see Arnold Schwarzenegger as president.
Oh, interesting.
I really would. Yeah, I really
That's
would.
a fascinating choice.
Obviously not U.S. born, can't run for office or can't run for president.
Right.
He has, obviously ran California, as the governor, as you remember.
Governor. Yeah.
And actually acted more as a politician than he ever did as a celebrity when he was in office. Now, he did use his celebrity to get some things done.
Sure.
And okay. Oh, by the way, so did Ronald Reagan. But
that's right.
I actually think he did it, and I remember it pretty well. I think he did a pretty good job, and I think that he's one now who is not afraid to call a spade a spade. He calls it as he sees it. He's not afraid of hurting people's feelings. He doesn't bend with the wind. And maybe people will say he can afford to because he's got no future political aspirations, so maybe he's free to do that. But either way, I think somebody out of the realm, total left field pick. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger would be a very interesting presidential candidate.
Yeah, that's a fascinating pick. I don't think I would have guessed you would have said that in a million years. I'm probably because there are so many people to choose from. It just wouldn't even cross my mind. But yeah, interesting. I'm just already picturing him in his like Terminator costume.
Yeah, right.
That'd be cool.
So an appropriate last question for you.
Okay.
Appropriate only because it's the end of the show, not for any other reason. But a little bit, probably I would say the silliest one that I have asked you thus far. Death row last meal. What is it?
Oh, death row last meal. Gosh.
Anything you want.
Oh my gosh. I am like the most boring person on the planet, I think. It would be I'm just sticking with my favorites. It would be surf and turf, filet mignon, lobster. Yeah, what would I want for sides? Asparagus with hollandaise sauce. I need a starch, Donna. I think I need a starch. Garlic smashed potatoes. I told you it's not going to be, I'm a meat and potatoes girl, I guess, based on that, right? Yeah, that would be my last meal. And I would want, so I have this weird obsession with watermelon. Like, it's so weird. Like, these are the things, now you're all going to hear how freaking weird I am and the things that I think of in this brain of mine. I had this thought one time and I said it out loud, so I'm saying it again. If I were stupid wealthy, the one thing that I would do for certain is I would have the most fresh, ripe, beautiful watermelons flown to me year round. And I would have watermelon like basically every day, but only the heart of it, only the very center of it. And I would toss the rest. And that would be my crazy, bizarre extravagance as a dumb, wealthy person. So,
That
yes,
would
now you all.
be that would be your Rolling Stones, take out all the green M&Ms, kind of
Yes.
extravagant thing would be fresh watermelon on
Yeah.
the daily. Yeah.
On the daily. That would be,
Yeah.
yes, that would be my diva moment for sure.
Listen, I'm not gonna dispute your last meal. I mean, I'm a meat and potatoes guy too. I would actually go the breakfast route, which I know is probably a
Oh.
little bit weird, but it would be
Oh.
I remember back when I was in college, as I frequented some establishments that served alcohol. There was where I went to school, there was actually three of them in town. There was a Hardee's, which if you're not
Mm.
geographically in a Hardee's area, you probably know it as Carl's Jr. That's a Hardee's variation. Anyway,
Okay.
the Hardee's in town used to make really what was a drunk meal. It was. And the bars would, about an hour or so before closing time, the waitresses would walk around and take orders, and they would send a bouncer to the Hardee's, and they would come back with these things in styrofoam containers and then hand them out. You paid
Wow.
for them and all that stuff, just like you paid your bar tab. But
Sure.
it was called a Herald. So it was two biscuits. Now keep in mind, this is middle of the night, way
Yep.
too much to drink. But it was two biscuits. It was scrambled eggs. It
Mhm.
was broken apart sausage patties. It was hash browns, and it was all covered in gravy, all of it.
Wow.
And we would eat Harold's, and to this day, I'm the guy who goes to the diner, and I
Yep.
have something that looks exactly like that on my plate. So it's food
I
and it's
love
breakfast,
that.
but it's all covered in gravy. So if I'm gonna
Oh,
go, and it's death row. I'm having heart attack gravy. That's what I'm having.
yep. I like it. I like it. I think that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of unconventional meals. I actually do eat like dinner foods for breakfast. Like I will not think twice about having, barbecue chicken and whatever for breakfast. And because my
Do you do the
logic is
reverse? Do you
I
do the
do.
reverse? Do
I
breakfast for
do.
dinner?
Yep.
Absolutely. That's a winner every time.
Right? You can't lose on that. It's so good. It's so good. And my argument is always the same. Like your stomach doesn't know the difference, you know? Like it's
Yeah.
food. It's food is food. So
Yeah.
yeah. So well, now you all know how strange Clay and I are. And hopefully that endears us to you even more than it we already are, right? We're near and dear to your hearts, and you just love us so much that you're liking and sharing and subscribing and doing all of the things to stay in our universe and our orbit. Because guess what? We love you too, and we want you along for the ride. So make sure you do all those things I just messaged. I'm looking at a word and saying it out loud. All of those things I just mentioned is what I meant to say. Clay, we're going to let you close it out because you have a better grasp on the English language right now. So take it out.
Hey, first things first. Thanks again to Stephanie for the great question.
Yes.
Again, proof positive, listeners. If you send us stuff, we'll take it on. We'll definitely pull it into the show, and we want to hear feedback from everybody. So thanks again to Stephanie for her question and contributing to this show. But that was a lot of fun, and interestingly enough, we both interpreted the task essentially the same. We were
How
not
about that?
light years apart, right? You
Right.
didn't come at me with a whole bunch of deep philosophical, political world questions, and I didn't come back to you and ask you for Kamala Harris impersonations. And we were not miles apart. We were pretty much down the middle, and we hit it just right. And it was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot about you, and I think you learned a lot about me. So Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you had a good time. I think it was a great show. And as always from me, keep moving, keep shooting.
I love it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.